There's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge, the coming administration, in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
In 2017, at an event at the very beginning of the last presidential administration, while attending an event held at Georgetown University in the nation's capital, and promoting a proposal for a public health emergency fund, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the highest compensated federal employee and the director of the National Institutes for Allergy and Infectious Disease, NIAID, the government agency responsible for funding medical device technology to include vaccines and personal protective equipment, made the ominous prediction that a pandemic would occur to a mathematical certainty, which indeed did come to pass. Does the president's top medical advisor possess the gifts of prophecy? Some people believe that he does. At the beginning of a Hollywood film with an all-star cast, including Dustin Hoffman, Donald Sutherland, Rene Russo, Cuba Gooding Jr., Patrick Dempsey, Kevin Spacey, and Morgan Freeman, film audiences in 1995 were introduced to a quote that had appeared in that biological thriller at the very beginning of the film Outbreak, from Dr. Joshua Lederberg, an alumnus of both the undergraduate program and the medical school at the prestigious Columbia University in New York, with a PhD in microbiology from Yale University, who had been awarded the Nobel Prize at the age of just 33, with Edward Tatum and George Beadle for discovering the bacterial conjugation. The single biggest threat to mankind's continued dominance on the planet is the virus. Coincidentally, in 1995, when that film appeared in movie theaters across the nation, the Department of Defense was standing up the Armed Forces Medical Intelligence Center, AFMIC, which would be the precursor to the National Medical Intelligence Center, INMIC, which in April 2020, George Stephanopoulos and ABC News had reported was supposed to have alerted the former president as early as November 2019. A claim denied by Defense Secretary Mike Esper and soundly refuted by an extensive analysis of influenza-like illness, ILI, and acute respiratory illness, ARI, data by the WHO in February 2021, which had examined medical records dating back to September 2019 and had rather conclusively determined that the very first infections in China had not occurred until December 3rd, 2019, with the very first symptomatic presentation on December 8th, 2019, falling coincidentally on the same day as the celebration of the Immaculate Conception Feast. The single biggest threat to man's continued dominance on the planet is the virus. And at the beginning of the pandemic, around late March to mid or even late April 2020, It was probably one of the most frequently quoted sentences, almost self-fulfilling prophecy, if not reinforcing dogma, appearing in publications that had included National Geographic, the Tribune of India, the Genetic Literacy Project, and Politico. Yet while it is a wonderfully ominous manner with which to introduce a biological terror thriller movie, the question remains as to whether quoting a Nobel laureate microbiologist makes it true. And at least by 2012, what may have sounded true to 1995 film audiences was no longer the case, because in that year, when the Middle East respiratory or MERS virus had emerged on the Arabian Peninsula, Mark Woolhouse had determined that from the most abundant biological particles in the world, there were only a total of 119 viruses that were harmful to mankind. And so, by the law of large numbers, that would sound extremely remote. And so unless Dr. Lederer was contemplating something other than a zoonotic evolution, the risk associated with viruses was extremely rare. And with coronaviruses, in fact, even far less.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
There's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge, the coming administration, in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.